What if Guts never loved Casca? Welcome, strugglers. Today, we are not just analyzing Berserk. We are stepping into the abyss to rewrite the very fabric of causality. We are going to pull on a single thread, a thread so delicate, so seemingly quiet amidst the clanging of swords and the roaring of demons, that you might not even realize it's holding the entire universe of Berserk together. We are going to ask the question that haunts the edges of the Golden Age, a question that transforms the tragedy from a story of heartbreak into a story of absolute, unmitigated nihilism. What if Guts never loved Casca? I want you to take a deep breath, close your eyes, and listen to the sound of the rain in that cave. You know the one. It's the moment the mad dog finally stopped barking and started to become a human being. But imagine, just for a second, that the dog never stopped barking. Imagine that when Guts looked at Casca, he didn't see a reflection of his own vulnerability. He didn't see a woman fighting for her place in a world that wanted to crush her. He just saw another soldier, another liability. Imagine the Golden Age without the heartbeat that kept it alive. This isn't just a ship war. This is a fundamental dismantling of the psychological safety net Kentaro Miura built for his protagonist. Because if you remove Casca from Guts' heart, you don't just lose a romance. You lose the leash that keeps the beast of darkness from consuming Guts before the eclipse even begins. Let's rewind. We have to understand what Casca actually represents to Guts in the canon. Miura was a genius at weaving distinct psychological profiles into his action. Guts enters the story as a trauma survivor, specifically the trauma of Gambino and Donovan. His worldview is transactional. You fight, you survive, or you die. Value is determined by the sword. Intimacy is a threat. Touch is a violation. When he joins the band of the Hawk, Griffith offers him a place. But it's an abstract place. It's a place on the battlefield. Griffith is the sky, distant, beautiful, terrifying, and ultimately unreachable. But Casca is the earth. She is the friction. She is the one who gets in his face, who screams at him, who forces him to engage not as a weapon, but as a person, even if it's an angry person. In the interviews Miura gave, he often spoke about how Guts needed a reason to stay human, something that wasn't just the lofty ambition of Griffith. Casca became that anchor. Now, cut the anchor. We are back in the cave, the waterfall scene. This is the pivotal moment in the Golden Age. In the original, this is where Guts realizes Casca is just like him, broken, idolizing Griffith, desperate for validation. He warms her with his body, a moment of non-sexual intimacy that heals his trauma regarding touch. It is the first time since his birth that touch equals safety, not pain. But in our hollow sword timeline, let's say Guts' trauma is too thick. The walls are too high. He pulls her out of the river, yes, because she is a useful asset to the Hawks, and Guts is a professional. But when she wakes up shivering, hallucinating, crying out for Griffith, Guts looks at her and feels nothing but annoyance. He sees weakness. "Wake up," he grunts. He doesn't hold her. He throws his cape over her, sits on the other side of the fire, and sharpens his sword. He listens to her tragic backstory, the nobleman, the attempted assault, Griffith saving her, and instead of empathizing, he internalizes it as confirmation of his own nihilistic worldview. See, he thinks, the world is garbage. Relying on others gets you killed. You're weak for needing Griffith to save you. The bond isn't formed. The shared warmth never happens. The friction remains just friction. Casca wakes up the next day not with a confused sense of closeness to the brute, but with a reinforced hatred for the man who treated her vulnerability with cold indifference. She remains isolated, trapped between a Griffith who uses her and a Guts who dismisses her. This subtle shift in the cave changes the DNA of the 100-Man Slayer event. In canon, Guts fights those soldiers to buy time for Casca. He screams, he bleeds, he goes berserk, but there is a protective instinct driving the rage. He is fighting for someone. In this new reality, Guts still fights. He still kills 100 men. But he doesn't do it for Casca. He does it because he is cornered. He does it because he loves the smell of blood. He does it to test the limits of his sword. Casca escapes, looking back at the carnage, and she doesn't see a hero sacrificing himself for her. She sees a monster reveling in slaughter. The mad dog moniker she gave him, it sticks, it hardens. She fears him. And when Guts collapses, bleeding out, and they find him, he doesn't look for her face. He looks for Griffith's approval. Or perhaps he looks at nothing at all. He is surviving for the sake of survival. Now, we move to the bonfire. The bonfire of dreams scene is, in my opinion, one of the greatest pieces of writing in manga history. It's the philosophical thesis of the Golden Age. Guts looks at the lights of the camp and realizes he has no light of his own. In the original, Casca is there. They share a tender moment. She tells him he's mad for wanting to leave, but there's a pull there. She represents a reason to stay, even if he can't see it yet. If Guts doesn't love Casca, this conversation is ice cold. He looks at the sparks, he looks at her, and he says, "You're all just kindling for his fire." There is no softness, no hesitation. He isn't leaving to find an equal standing so he can be worthy of walking beside his friends. He is leaving because he realizes he is a wolf among sheep. He looks at Casca's devotion to Griffith, and he doesn't feel a pang of jealousy or shared longing. He feels contempt. "You are a slave to a dream that isn't yours," he tells her, and he means it. This brings us to the departure, the snowball fight, the duel in the snow. This is where the tragedy compounds. When Guts walks away in the original, it hurts. You can see it in his eyes. He is tearing himself away from the only family he has ever known. Casca screams at him, "You're always like this. You always leave." And it pierces him. But in our version, Guts walks past her like she's a ghost. Her words bounce off his back. He defeats Griffith with a single, brutal strike, not out of a desire to prove equality, but to assert dominance. "I am stronger than you now," the blow says. "I have outgrown this cage." Here is the kicker, the detail that makes this timeline terrifying. Griffith's collapse. In the canon, Griffith falls apart because Guts, his only equal, the only one who made him forget his dream, chose to leave. That dynamic remains true. Griffith is still possessive. Griffith still breaks. He still goes to Charlotte's chamber to self-destruct. But think about the aftermath. The band of the Hawk is hunted. They are starving, dying in the woods. Casca has to step up and lead. In the original, she holds it together because she loves Griffith, but also because she is carrying the memory of Guts, the hope that he might return, the complex feelings she has for him. In this version, she is utterly alone. She hates Guts for abandoning them. She hates him for breaking Griffith. Her leadership is more brittle, more desperate. She becomes harder, crueler, and when Guts finally hears the news, when he hears the Hawks are outlaws, in the canon, he rushes back. He returns to the campfire. He saves Casca from Salat, and there is that reunion, the moment their eyes meet and the tension breaks. They make love at the waterfall. It is the culmination of their trauma, a healing union where they realize they are the only two people in the world who understand each other. It is the moment Guts decides not to leave again. He decides to stay for her. He finds his dream, to wield my sword for the sake of protecting this. Erase it. Guts returns, yes, but he returns out of obligation. He returns because he owes a debt to the Hawks, or perhaps because the Skull Knight warned him of the Eclipse, and his curiosity is piqued. He saves Casca from Silat, but the fighting is mechanical. He looks at her broken state, her exhaustion, and he feels pity, maybe, but not love. There is no sex in the waterfall. There is no wounds chapter where they bare their souls. Guts looks at the broken band of the Hawk and thinks, I need to get Griffith, pay my debt, and then I am gone. He tells Casca this, I'm getting him back, then I'm leaving. Can you feel how cold that is? Can you feel the despair creeping in? Casca is standing on the edge of the abyss, holding the weight of 100 lives, and the strongest man she knows tells her he is just a tourist in her suffering. This changes the rescue of Griffith entirely. When they go down into the Tower of Rebirth, when they find the husk of the White Hawk, the horror is the same. But the emotional geometry is different. Guts sees what happened to Griffith, and his rage is pure fury at the king, at the torture. But he doesn't look at Casca and think, we have to survive this together. He thinks, this is what happens when you are weak. And Griffith, muted, tongueless, crippled Griffith. He looks at Guts. He sees the man who ruined everything, but he also looks at Casca. In the canon, Griffith sees the growing bond between Guts and Casca. He sees her wiping Guts' brow. He sees the intimacy. And that jealousy, that realization that they have moved on, that they have found solace in each other while he rots, is the final nail in his sanity. It is what triggers the Beherit. It is the realization that he has been left behind by the two people he owned. But if Guts doesn't love Casca, if Guts is standing there, cold and distant, treating Casca like a subordinate, Griffith doesn't see a new romance. He sees Guts standing tall, shining, unbroken, while he is a wretch. The jealousy is purified. It's no longer complex sexual romantic jealousy. It is pure, distilled envy of power. Guts has the strength Griffith lost. And Casca, she is just a witness to his humiliation. The dynamic is colder, sharper. The Beherit activates not because Griffith feels replaced in their hearts, but because he feels pitied by his tool. The Eclipse begins not with a tearful realization of lost humanity, but with a scream of absolute narcissistic entitlement. We are now approaching the Eclipse, and this is where the horror truly transforms, because the Eclipse is designed to break Guts. The God Hand knows exactly how to hurt him. Femto knows. The rape of Casca. I know, it's the hardest part of the story to discuss. But we have to analyze it. In the canon, Femto does it to sever the last link of humanity in Guts, to defile the woman Guts loves right in front of him, to say, everything you care about is mine to destroy. It is a personal, intimate violation of Guts' heart. In our Hollow Sword timeline, Femto still does it. Why? To sever the Hawk from the humanity, to destroy the mother of the band, to assert dominance. But Guts is pinned down. He is watching. He is screaming. He is cutting his own arm off. But he isn't watching the love of his life being destroyed. He is watching a comrade, a woman he respects as a soldier, being tortured. The pain is there. The rage is there. But the heartbreak is missing. And that missing heartbreak changes the nature of the trauma. It shifts from, I failed to protect the woman I love, to, I failed to kill the man who betrayed me. Do you see the distinction? It's subtle, but it's crucial. In the original, Guts survives the Eclipse because of the Skull Knight. But he keeps surviving because he has to protect the insane Casca. She is his burden and his salvation. She is the reason he doesn't completely lose himself to the beast. She's the reason he eventually forms a new party. In this timeline, the Skull Knight crashes through the dimension. He grabs Guts. He grabs Casca. They escape to the cave of Godo. Casca mind breaks. She reverts to a childlike state, traumatized beyond repair, and Guts wakes up. He realizes he has the brand. He realizes Griffith is femto. He looks at the potato Casca. And he leaves her. This is the cliffhanger, my friends. This is the moment the story fractures into a nightmare. Without the love, without the promise to protect this, Guts looks at the invalid Casca and sees only a reminder of his failure. He sees a broken tool. He trusts Rickert and Godo to watch her, or perhaps he doesn't care. He takes the Dragon Slayer. He takes the cloak. And he walks into the night alone. Completely alone. There is no tether. There is no guilt about leaving her behind, only the burning, consuming need to kill Griffith. The Black Swordsman arc begins, but there is no Puck, or if there is, Guts might kill him. There is no, I have to go back to her. There is only the hunt. The beast of darkness opens its eyes, and for the first time it smiles. Because in this version of the story, there is no one standing at the gate to keep it in. The road is silent. Can you hear that? It is the silence of a man who has nothing left to lose because he never allowed himself to have anything to begin with. We are walking the path of the Black Swordsman now, but the texture of the dirt under our boots feels different in this timeline. In the canon, the Black Swordsman arc is defined by a frantic, rabid desperation to escape trauma. But underneath that rage, there was always a subconscious magnetic pull back to the cave, back to Casca. Guts was running away from his pain, but the pain was rooted in love. He left because he couldn't bear to see her broken, which means he cared. But here, in our hollow sword reality, Guts isn't running away from heartbreak. He is running toward the kill. The silence is deafening, because there is no internal conflict. There is no voice in the back of his head whispering, "Go back to her." There is only the roar of the fire and the scream of the brand. Let's contextualize the 2 years of the Black Swordsman hunt. In the original story, we see Guts crying. We see him having panic attacks. We see the moment with the Count's daughter where he sees himself in her, a child left alone by a monster. He feels guilt. He feels the weight of his humanity dragging behind him like a heavy cloak. But strip away the love for Casca, and you strip away the primary tether to empathy. Without the memory of Casca's touch, without the lingering warmth of the waterfall, Guts is just the product of Gambino and the Eclipse. He becomes a creature of pure efficiency. When he meets Puck in the tavern, he doesn't just tolerate the elf. He ignores him completely, or perhaps swats him away like a fly. Puck, ever the empath, senses the void inside Guts. In the canon, Puck feels Guts' sadness. Here, Puck feels a vacuum. He feels a black hole where a soul used to be. The comedy is gone. Puck follows Guts not out of curiosity or a desire to heal him, but out of sheer, morbid fascination, like watching a natural disaster unfold in slow motion. He is witnessing the death of a human spirit. This brings us to the Lost Children chapter. This is crucial. I've always argued that Lost Children is the peak of Miura's artistic expression regarding the line between human and monster. Guts fights Rosine, a child who sacrificed her humanity to live in a fantasy. In the canon, Guts hesitates, just for a split second. He sees the child inside the moth. He takes hits he shouldn't take because he is wrestling with the morality of killing something that looks like a girl. But in this timeline, the hesitation is gone. The mad dog doesn't care about the backstory of the moth. He doesn't care that she used to be a lonely girl named Rosine. He sees an apostle. He sees a target. The fight is shorter, bloodier, and infinitely more tragic because Guts dismantles her with the mechanical precision of a butcher. He doesn't take the damage he took in the original. He doesn't get pushed to the brink of death in the same way because he doesn't hold back. And when he stands over her dying form and she asks if she can fly one last time, in the canon, he lets her die looking at the sky. In this timeline, he steps on her. He crushes the dream. It's brutal. It's efficient. It's exactly what the Black Swordsman thinks he needs to be. But here is where the physical toll starts to mount in a different way. In the canon, Guts breaks. He pushes himself too far, and his body fails, forcing him to return to Godo's mind to repair the Dragon Slayer. He returns because he physically cannot swing the sword anymore, but also because his soul is exhausted. He misses Casca. He needs to know she's safe. In our scenario, the sword still breaks. Physics is still physics. The Dragon Slayer cracks under the weight of the apostles he's butchered. He has to go back to Godo. But the emotional context of this return is devastatingly cold. Picture the scene. Guts walking up the snowy path to Godo's dwelling. In the original, this is a homecoming. It's tense, but it's a return to family. Rickard is there. Erica is there. Casca is there. In our timeline, Guts walks up that path, and he doesn't look for Casca. He walks straight to the forge. He throws the heap of iron that used to be a sword onto the ground and tells Godo, "Fix it." Godo looks at him. Godo, the wise old sage of steel, sees the change. In the original, Godo gives that legendary speech. You ran away because you couldn't handle the weight of her sadness. You're drowning in your own hate to avoid looking at what you lost. It cuts Guts to the core because it's true. Guts did run away from his love. But what does Godo say to a man who never loved her? He looks at Guts, and he sees a man who hasn't run away from anything, but who has discarded everything. The speech changes. Godo doesn't scold him for abandoning Casca. He scolds him for abandoning himself. You aren't a man wielding a sword anymore, Godo might say, the sparks flying as he hammers the blade. You've become the sheath for the sword. You're hollow, Guts. There's no blood in you, just iron. And Guts doesn't flinch. He doesn't reflect. He just waits. He sharpens his knife. He eats the food Erica gives him without tasting it. And Casca, where is she? In the canon, she wandered off, sparking the conviction arc. Guts has to go find her. In this timeline, let's assume the same causality applies. The brand calls to spirits. She gets spooked. She wanders into the night. Rickard tells Guts, Casca is gone. She ran away days ago. In the original, Guts drops everything. He panics. He runs after her. Here, Guts stares into the fire. She's probably dead, he says. A cripple with a brand? She wouldn't last a night. Rickard is horrified. He screams at Guts. She was your comrade. She was our commander. Guts just looks at him with that dead, one-eyed stare. She died in the Eclipse, Rickard. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't Casca. He intends to leave. He intends to take the fixed Dragon Slayer and go back to hunting the God Hand. He has no intention of going to Albion. The Tower of Conviction means nothing to him. Why would he go to a refugee camp? Why would he waste time saving a ghost? But the story must move Guts to Albion. Fate, or causality, demands it. The Beherit in his pouch starts to tremble. The brand on his neck bleeds, not just a trickle, but a river. He feels the convergence. He senses that Griffith is coming, not Casca. Griffith. The incarnation ceremony isn't just about saving Casca from being burned as a witch. It's the gateway for Femto to enter the physical world. Guts, the ultimate hunter, smells the prey. He doesn't go to Albion as a savior. He goes as an executioner. He realizes that the dark energy pooling in the west isn't just random apostles, it's a focal point. He thinks, if I go there, I will find them. So he travels to Albion. But the journey is solitary. He doesn't have the budding camaraderie with Isidro. When the thief kid tries to tag along, amazed by the sword, Guts threatens to cut him in half if he doesn't get lost. Isidro, being Isidro, might follow at a distance, but there is no mentorship. There is no swordsman teaching the kid. There is only a monster leaving a trail of bodies, and Farnese and the Holy Iron Chain Knights. In the canon, Guts spares them. He captures Farnese and shows her the darkness shaking her world view. In this timeline, when they ambush him, it's a slaughter. He doesn't play games. He kills the knights. He might not kill Farnese. Perhaps she survives by pure luck or because she freezes in terror. But he doesn't take her hostage to teach her a lesson. He smashes through their blockade like a force of nature. Farnese's awakening isn't a fascination with the darkness. It is pure, unadulterated PTSD. She follows him not because she wants to learn the truth of the world, but because her mind has snapped from witnessing the carnage, and she is drawn to the abyss that destroyed her faith. We arrive at the Tower of Conviction. The atmosphere is thick with misery. In the canon, Guts is frantic, searching the caves for Casca. Every second counts. The tension comes from the ticking clock of her execution. Here, the tension comes from the buildup of the massacre. Guts arrives, and he cuts through the Kushan scouts. He cuts through the possessed cultists. He isn't looking for a woman with dark skin and short hair. He's looking for the white hawk. He finds the mock eclipse. The blob creatures are swarming. The tower is collapsing, and somewhere in that chaos, Casca is there. Maybe he sees her. Maybe he sees the witch hunt crowd dragging her to the pyre. Does he intervene? This is the moment of truth. If he truly feels nothing, he lets her burn. But perhaps the brand reacts to her proximity. Or perhaps the Skull Knight appears and tells him, the one you seek will be born from that woman's death. No, that's not right. The Skull Knight would say, the struggle is futile if the foundation is dust. Let's say Guts ignores her. He fights Mozgus. The battle with Mozgus is legendary in the original because Guts is fighting to reach Casca. I won't let you pray while people die, he screams. It's a theological debate enforced by a slab of iron. In this timeline, Guts fights Mozgus simply because Mozgus is in the way. Mozgus is an apostle, pseudo-apostle. Guts kills apostles. The dialogue is stripped of its philosophical weight about God and suffering. Guts doesn't care about Mozgus's hypocrisy. He just wants to smash the stone. He pulverizes Mozgus, not to save the girl falling from the tower, but to clear the path to the center of the vortex. And then it happens. The incarnation, the egg of the perfect world, shatters. Griffith is reborn. In the canon, this is the most heartbreaking moment. Guts sees Griffith, reborn in flesh, beautiful and divine. And he also has Casca, safe in his arms or nearby. The reunion is complicated by the fact that Guts has successfully protected her, but lost the world to Griffith again. In our timeline, Guts stands amidst the gore of thousands of dead refugees. He is covered in blood, panting, the beast of darkness practically superimposed over his face. And Griffith descends, but Griffith is alone. Casca, she died. Maybe she burned in the chaos. Maybe she was crushed by the falling tower because Guts didn't catch her. Or maybe the demon child used its last ounce of power to save her, but she is lost in the crowd, irrelevant to the scene. Guts sees Griffith. The White Hawk stands on the rubble, unscathed, perfect. The contrast is nauseating. Guts, the avatar of struggle, filth and blood, versus Griffith, the avatar of destiny, light and purity. Guts doesn't scream Griffith with a mix of betrayal and longing. He doesn't hesitate. He charges. The instant he sees him, no words, no shock, just the explosive release of 2 years of unmitigated hatred. He swings the dragon slayer with enough force to cleave a mountain, but he misses. Of course he misses. Zod is there. The clash between the dragon slayer and Zod's blade rings out, shattering the silence of the new world. And Griffith looks at Guts. In the canon, there is a moment where Griffith says, "I came to see if I would feel anything." And he confirms his heart is frozen. In this timeline, Griffith looks at Guts, and he doesn't need to check his heart. He sees a Guts who has lost his humanity. He sees a rabid dog. And for the first time, Griffith feels disappointment. He expected his rival. He expected the man who made him forget his dream. Instead, he sees just another monster of the interstice. The spark is gone. Guts isn't the only one anymore. He's just a force of destruction. "You have become boring, Guts," Griffith might say. It's the ultimate insult. It's worse than hate. It's indifference. Griffith flies away on Zod. He leaves Guts there, screaming at the sky, not because he failed to save Casca, but because he failed to kill the target. The Hill of Swords is not a monument to fallen comrades. It is a graveyard of Guts' purpose. And the worst part, Guts is now truly alone. No Casca to care for, no Farnese and Serpico begging to join him. They are terrified of him. No Isidro fanboying. He fled. No Puck. He finally left, unable to bear the darkness. Guts stands in the ruins of Albion, the brand bleeding, the sun rising on a new age of darkness, and he has absolutely nothing to hold on to. The beast of darkness whispers, "Let me take the wheel completely. You don't need to sleep. You don't need to eat. You just need to kill." The Millennium Falcon arc begins not with a party forming, but with a man dissolving. The Berserker armor is waiting for him, and in this timeline, when he puts it on, there will be no Shirka to pull him back. There will be no memory of Casca to anchor his sanity. Once the helmet clicks shut, it might never open again. We are staring into the abyss, and the abyss is putting on armor. This isn't a struggle anymore. It's a suicide mission that might take the whole world down with it. We have arrived at the point of no return. If the previous chapters were about the erosion of humanity, this chapter is about the mechanization of the soul. We are entering the Millennium Falcon arc, but in our Hollow Sword timeline, this isn't an adventure. It is a funeral procession of one. Think about the structure of Berserk after the Conviction arc. It shifts genre. It goes from dark fantasy survival horror to a high fantasy RPG party dynamic. We get Isidro, Farnese, Serpico, Shirka, Ivalera, Puck. We get dinners around the campfire. We get comedic relief. We get the growing warmth of a found family that heals the wounds of the Eclipse. It is Miura telling us that healing is possible, that community is the antidote to trauma. Now burn that script. Guts is alone. He left Albion not with a new party, but with a fresh layer of gore on his soul, and the realization that the Dragon Slayer, as massive as it is, was too slow to hit Griffith. He is walking through the winter woods. It is cold, but Guts doesn't feel the cold. His nerves are shot. The brand is bleeding constantly because the astral world is merging with the physical, and he is a beacon for every spirit in a 10-mile radius. In the cannon, the party takes shifts watching the fire. They let Guts sleep. Here, Guts doesn't sleep. He can't. If he closes his eyes, the ghosts come. If he passes out from exhaustion, he wakes up swinging his sword at thin air. The physical deterioration is accelerated by a factor of 10. He looks like a walking corpse. His eyes are sunken. His skin is gray. His muscles are eating themselves for fuel. The beast of darkness is no longer a whisper. It is a constant narrator, overlaying his reality with hallucinations of violence. The Skull Knight appears. In the canon, the Skull Knight is cryptic but helpful. He sees the potential in Guts' struggle. Here, the Skull Knight looks at Guts and sees a mirror image of his own damnation, but without the grace of time. He sees a man burning out. "Struggler," he says, the voice rattling like bones in a crypt. "Your sword is cracked. Your body is ash. You seek the hawk, but you will not reach him as you are." He doesn't guide Guts to Flora, the witch of the spirit tree, to save him. He guides him there to weaponize him. It's a different compact. In the canon, Flora is a grandmother figure who offers sanctuary. She gives the berserker armor as a last resort with a heavy heart, knowing the cost. In this timeline, Guts arrives at the mansion of the spirit tree alone. He drags the broken dragon slayer behind him. There is no Shirka meeting him at the gate with a humorous misunderstanding. The golems attack, and Guts smashes them with zero hesitation, zero curiosity. Shirka watches from the balcony, trembling. She doesn't see a human with a dark aura. She sees a vortex of malice that rivals the apostles. She is terrified of him. When Flora invites him in, the atmosphere is tense. There is no tea party. There is no discussion about the nature of magic or the elementals. Guts sits in the chair, blood dripping onto Flora's floor, and says one thing: "I need power to kill him." Flora looks at him with infinite sadness. She sees that he has no tether, no Casca, no friends. She knows that giving him the fetish, the berserker armor, is essentially signing his death warrant. But she also knows that causality is in motion. The apostles are coming. Grunbeld is coming. The mansion is targeted. She makes the choice. She gives him the armor not as a gift, but as a curse he is willing to accept. "This armor," she warns, "will eat the last of your life. It will consume your flesh to bind your bones. Without an anchor to pull you back, you will not return." Guts looks at the armor. The helmet is shaped like the beast. It's almost as if the armor is looking back at him, recognizing its new host. In the canon, Guts hesitates. He worries about losing control and hurting his friends. Here, he stands up. He strips off his tattered cloak. "I don't plan on returning," he says. The invasion begins. The Neo-Band of the Hawk attacks the mansion. Grunbeld, the fire dragon, crashes through the walls. In the original, this fight is iconic because Guts is protecting the retreat of his friends. He dons the armor to save them. It's heroic. Here, it is apocalyptic. Guts puts on the armor. The clamps dig into his flesh. The click of the helmet locking into place echoes like a cell door slamming shut. And then, silence. The pain vanishes. The fear vanishes. The human limitation vanishes. Guts roars, but it's not a human scream. It's the metallic screech of the armor amplifying the beast. He launches himself at Grunbeld. The fight is different. In the canon, Shirka astral projects into the armor to calm him down, to pull Guts back from the abyss. She sees the light of his humanity protecting Casca. In this timeline, Shirka is watching from the distance, horrified. She tries to connect, to touch his mind, but she is blasted back by a wall of pure, concentrated rage. There is no light. There is no small, glowing Casca in his heart to focus on. There is only the black sun. Guts tears into Grunbeld with a ferocity that is uncomfortable to watch. He doesn't just overpower the dragon, he mutilates him. He breaks Grunbeld's shield, then his limbs, moving with the jerky, unnatural speed of a marionette whose strings are being pulled by a demon. The armor pierces Guts' bones, stitching him together, and Guts laughs. He laughs through the blood. He defeats Grunbeld, or rather, Grunbeld retreats, realizing this is not a warrior, but a force of entropy. The mansion burns. Flora dies. The Skull Knight saves Shirka and Ivalera. And Guts stands amidst the flames of the spirit tree. The helmet does not retract. The red eyes of the armor glow in the smoke. He turns to look at Shirka. For a moment, the young witch thinks he might kill her too. The beast is in control. But then the armor turns away, not out of mercy, but out of lack of interest. Shirka is not Griffith. He walks away. He walks out of the burning forest and back into the snow. Shirka screams after him, "You will die, you can't control it." But he keeps walking. He is now the berserker. The Black Swordsman is dead. The berserker is born. Now we face the biggest narrative divergence in this entire analysis. In the canon, the story moves to the coast. They need a boat. Why? To get to Skellig, Elfhelm. Why? To cure Casca. But in our timeline, Casca is gone. Guts has zero reason to go to Elfhelm. He has no reason to get on a boat. He has no reason to seek the Elf King. The entire sea god arc, deleted. The years of hiatus on the boat, gone. Guts has only one destination, Wyndham, the capital of Midland, the seat of Griffith's new empire. This changes the genre of the story again. It becomes a guerrilla war, a one-man insurgency against a divine kingdom. Guts travels south toward the heart of the Hawk's territory, but the cost of the armor is immediate and terrifying. Without Shirka to soothe the odd, the armor stays active longer. It keeps biting him. He loses his sense of taste within weeks. He loses color vision. The world becomes a monochromatic nightmare of shadows and blood. He stops feeling temperature. He becomes a machine that requires fuel, but feels no pleasure in eating. The rumors start to spread in Midland. They talk of a black iron demon that stalks the night. Patrols of the war demons go missing. Entire outposts are found reduced to paste. Griffith, sitting on his throne in the rising city of Falconia, hears the reports. He knows who it is. He feels the throb in the astral layers. But here is the tragedy of the hollow sword. In the canon, Guts' humanity is what makes him a threat to Griffith's ideology. Guts represents the struggle of man against destiny, the warmth of human connection versus the cold perfection of the Hawk. In this timeline, Guts is becoming exactly what Griffith discarded, a monster. He is losing the moral high ground. He is becoming a natural disaster. The peasants fear him. He kills Kushan and Hawk alike if they get in his way. He is no longer the hero of the story. He is the antagonist to Griffith's peace. Imagine the psychological state of the reader here. We are watching our protagonist dissolve. We are cheering for him to kill Griffith, but we are horrified by what he has become. There are no moments of levity. No chestnut Puck. Puck has long since fled, unable to handle the vibe. Guts is alone with his sword and his armor. He sleeps standing up, the armor locking his joints. He dreams of nothing. He reaches the outskirts of Falconia. The city is shining, white, pristine. It is a utopia built on the corpse of the old world. And at the gates stands the Black Swordsman, a jagged, rusted, bleeding scar on the landscape. He doesn't have a plan, He doesn't have a team to sneak him in. He just walks toward the gate. The climax of this arc is not a battle against a sea god. It is the siege of Falconia. But it's a siege of one. The Neo-band of the Hawk sorties to meet him. Locus, Irvine, Rakshas, Zod, the heavy hitters. In the canon, these would be separate duels spread out over arcs. Here, it is a gauntlet, a meat grinder. Guts engages Zod again. But this time, Zod is not having fun. Zod loves battle, loves the clash of wills. But fighting this version of Guts is like fighting a landslide. There is no will to clash with, only an endless, screaming void. The armor forces Guts' body to move beyond breaking points. His bones shatter and are instantly pinned back together by spikes. Blood sprays like oil from a ruptured engine. He tears Zod's horn off. He mauls Locus's metallic form. It is grotesque. It is the absolute peak of violence that Miura ever hinted at, realized in its most nihilistic form. But he cannot win. He cannot win because he is finite. The armor is consuming him faster than he can kill them. He is bleeding out. His vision is fading to black. And high above, on the parapets of Falconia, Griffith watches. He doesn't come down. He doesn't offer a duel. He watches the mad dog tear itself apart at the gates of his paradise. Guts falls, not because he was beaten by a superior warrior, but because his heart simply stops. The armor has eaten everything. The fuel tank is empty. He collapses on a pile of apostle corpses, the dragon slayer slipping from his metal fingers. The helmet does not retract. No one sees his face. Is he dead? This is where we end the chapter, with Guts lying motionless in the shadow of the White City. The world is quiet. The struggle seems to be over. The narrative hook here isn't, how will he win? It is there anything left of Guts to save? And then, a ripple in the air. The Skull Knight appears. But he is not alone. Behind him, emerging from the astral tear, is a small, trembling figure. Not Casca, not Shirka. It is the Moonlight Boy, the child, with the long dark hair and the eyes that look like Guts, the vessel that shares Griffith's body. The boy appears on the battlefield, walking toward the fallen armored Hulk. The apostles freeze. They cannot attack the boy. The instinct is primal. The boy walks up to the berserker armor. He places a small hand on the blood-soaked metal of the helmet. And for the first time in years, under the layers of steel and hate, a heartbeat stutters. This recontextualizes everything. We thought the lack of Casca meant the lack of the boy, but the boy exists because of the Eclipse rape, regardless of the subsequent romance. The boy is the only link left, the biological proof of Guts' humanity, surviving in the body of his enemy. The irony is crushing. The only thing that can save Guts now is the son he never knew, sharing the flesh of the man he lives to kill. The chapter closes with the boy's eyes glowing and the armor exhaling. This is the end of the line. We are standing at the precipice of the narrative, looking down into the crater where the heart of Berserk used to beat. We have stripped Guts of his love. We have stripped him of his companions, and we have watched him dismantle his own body in a solitary crusade against a god. Now, we have to look at the wreckage. We have to analyze the final moments of the Hollow Sword timeline, not just as a plot point, but as a philosophical verdict on the nature of struggle itself. Because if Guts never loved Casca, the ending of his story isn't a cliffhanger. It is a eulogy for a man who died long before his heart stopped beating. Let's go back to the image we left off with. The Moonlight Boy standing before the fallen, armored Colossus. The battlefield is silent. The apostles, Zod, Locus, Rakshas, are frozen, their predatory instincts overridden by the absolute authority radiating from the child. This is the paradox of the God Hand. The vessel of their king is hugging their enemy. In the canon, this moment would be confused, tender, mysterious. Guts would feel a pull toward the boy, a paternal instinct he can't explain because he unconsciously associates the boy with Casca. But here, in this timeline, Guts is drowning in the sensory deprivation of the armor. He doesn't feel a child. He feels a foreign pressure on his helmet. He feels the odd of the boy, pure, luminous, overwhelming, seeping into the cracks of the berserker armor. The armor hisses. It retracts. Not because Guts wills it to, but because the boy's presence is anathema to the beast of darkness. The helmet splits open with a wet, tearing sound, peeling back from Guts's face like the husk of a dead insect. And what is underneath? We see Guts, but it isn't the Guts we know. It isn't the rugged, scarred survivor. It is a ruin. His hair is entirely white, bleached by the stress of the armor. His skin is translucent, veins black with necrotic blood. His eyes, one is gone, gouged out long ago, but the other is milky, blind, burned out by the strain of seeing the astral world without a filter. He is breathing in ragged, wet gasps. He is dying. The armor was the only thing holding his organs together. Now that it has relaxed, gravity is crushing him. The Moonlight Boy looks into that single, blind eye. The boy is crying. Tears stream down his face, dropping onto Guts's scarred cheek. And here is the tragedy that breaks the universe. Guts feels the wetness of the tear, and he recoils. He flinches. He tries to raise a hand to swat the boy away, his muscle memory screaming, enemy, apostle, trap. But he can't lift his arm. The tendons are snapped. He can only lie there and endure the intimacy of a child he doesn't know. He doesn't recognize the boy. He doesn't know this is his son. He doesn't know this is the corrupted fruit of the Eclipse. He just knows that something small and warm is touching him, and it feels like fire because he has become a creature of ice. Get away, Guts rasps. His voice is a ruin of gravel and blood. Don't touch me. This is the anticlimax of the revenge. Guts made it to Falconia. He made it to the foot of the throne. And he is undone, not by Griffith's power, but by his own incapacity to accept connection. Then the transformation happens. The moon shifts. The hair of the boy lengthens. The body elongates. The light intensifies until it is blinding. The apostles bow their heads to the ground. Zod kneels. The Moonlight Boy is gone. Griffith stands there, Femto, the king of longing. He is wearing his white armor, his cape flowing in a wind that doesn't exist. He stands over Guts, looking down with those heavy-lidded, impossible eyes. In the canon, the reunion between Guts and Griffith on the Hill of Swords was charged with unspoken emotion, Griffith checking if he felt anything, Guts exploding with rage. But now, at the end of the road, Griffith looks at the wreckage of the Black Swordsman, and he doesn't feel triumph. He doesn't feel fear. He feels validation. I told you, Griffith says softly. The voice is melodic, perfect, and terrifying. I told you that you were the only one who made me forget my dream. But look at you now. You forgot yourself. Guts tries to move. The rage is there. The beast is screaming in the back of his mind. Kill him. He is right there. Bite his throat out. But the body is finished. The dragon slayer is lying 5 feet away, and it might as well be on the moon. Guts scowls, his teeth gritted, spitting blood. Griffith kneels. He doesn't float. He kneels in the gore, so his face is level with Guts. You have no sword, Griffith whispers. You have no dream. You have no sacrifice. You are just a heap of iron and hate. And this leads us to the Beherit, the Beki. It has been in Guts' pouch this whole time, watching, waiting. The fluids of the battle have soaked the pouch. The Beherit's eyes open, the mouth rearranges itself. The scream begins. The astral world screams with it. The dimension of the God Hand opens. The Slan, Ubik, Conrad, Void. They appear in the sky above Falconia, gigantic astral projections looking down at the final act. Is this it? Is this the moment Guts uses the Beherit? Does he sacrifice? In this standard theory, fans speculate Guts might sacrifice the beast, or his hate, or even Griffith. But in this timeline, we hit the hard wall of causality's logic. To sacrifice, you must offer that which keeps you human, that which you love most, that which makes your heart bleed to lose. Guts looks at the Beherit. He sees the face screaming, and he realizes with a cold, dawning horror that he has nothing to sacrifice. He doesn't love anyone. He doesn't value his own humanity. He discarded that miles ago. He doesn't have a band of the hawk to give. He has already sacrificed everything on the altar of his revenge, piece by piece, day by day. He hollowed himself out so thoroughly that the Beherit has no currency to trade with. The Beherit screams, and then it closes its eyes. It rejects him, not because he is too good, but because he is too empty. He is spiritually bankrupt. The God Hand laughs. It is a sound like tectonic plates grinding together. Void speaks, his voice echoing in every mind in Falconia. The thread is cut. The struggle is ended. There is no causality where there is no will to live. Griffith stands up. He turns his back on Guts. You are not even worth killing, he says. You are already dead. You died in the snow the day you left the cave. Griffith walks away toward the gates of Falconia, the apostles parting like the Red Sea. He doesn't look back. The greatest insult he can give Guts is to let him live the last few minutes of his life in total irrelevance. Guts is alone. The silence returns. The snow begins to fall, covering the blood, covering the dents in the armor. The cold begins to creep in, finally numbing the pain. And as the darkness closes in, as the vision fades, Guts' mind wanders. It doesn't go to the glory of battle. It doesn't go to the face of Griffith. It drifts back to the cave, back to the rain. In his final delirium, the hollow sword timeline cracks. He sees the alternate possibility. He hallucinates. He sees Casca in the cave. But this time, in his mind, he doesn't turn away. He sees himself wrapping the cloak around her. He feels the warmth of her skin. He sees her smile at him, that rare, guarded smile she gave him after the 100-man slayer. He hears her voice, not screaming orders, but whispering his name. I could have had that, he thinks. The realization hits him harder than any sword strike. I could have been warm. He realizes that the struggle was never about swinging the sword. It was about finding a reason to put the sword down. He realizes that his strength was a lie, because it was brittle. True strength isn't invulnerability. It's the capacity to endure vulnerability for the sake of another. By rejecting Casca, by rejecting love, he rejected the only thing that could have made his suffering meaningful. He looks at the Dragon Slayer one last time. It looks just like him, a slab of iron, too big, too heavy, too rough, and ultimately resting in the dirt. Guts closes his single eye. The beast of darkness gives one last whimper, a sound not of rage, but of a lonely dog left out in the cold, and then falls silent. Guts dies. He doesn't die as a hero. He doesn't die as a legend. He dies as a warning. His soul doesn't go to the vortex of souls to be tormented. It simply dissipates, like smoke in a gale. There is no gravitational pull of emotion to hold it together. The story ends with a wide shot of the field before Falconia. The snow is burying the berserker armor. The dragon slayer stands upright, stuck in the earth. A tombstone for a man who tried to fight the darkness by becoming the dark. The synthesis. Why this matters. So, why did we go on this journey? Why did we drag ourselves through this nightmare scenario? Was it just to torture our favorite character? No. It was to prove a hypothesis about Kentaro Miura's masterpiece. There is a pervasive criticism of Berserk, mostly from people who haven't read it deeply, that it is a manga about being a badass, that it's about testosterone, big swords, and violence. That Guts is the ultimate Sigma male icon because he endures. But this hollow sword timeline proves that interpretation is fundamentally wrong. If you remove Casca, if you remove the element of vulnerability, romance, and interdependence, Guts fails. He fails physically, he fails spiritually, and he fails narratively. The badassery becomes brittle. The violence becomes masturbatory. The struggle becomes nihilism. Casca is not a plot device to motivate Guts. She is the thesis statement of the manga. She represents the messy, painful, necessary reality of human connection. She is the reason Guts heals. She is the reason he learns to trust Shirka, to mentor Isidro, to respect Farnese. Without the lesson of loving Casca, Guts never learns how to be a father figure or a leader. He remains a soldier. And soldiers die. Miura was telling us something profound. You cannot struggle alone. The struggle in Berserk is virtuous only because it is in service of life. Guts fights against the inevitability of death, the Eclipse, the God Hand. But he does it so he can preserve the fragile, beautiful things in his life. Casca, his friends. If you remove the things he loves, his fight against death is just a refusal to lie down, which is stubbornness, not heroism. In our real lives, we often idolize the lone wolf. We armor ourselves. We think that if we don't let people in, we can't be hurt. We think that if we focus only on our goals, our Griffith, our ambition, we will be strong. But the hollow sword timeline shows us the endpoint of that philosophy. You might reach the castle. You might scare the monsters. But you will freeze to death at the gates. Guts becomes a true hero, not when he cuts a horse in half, but when he lets Shirka pull him out of the armor, when he holds Casca on the beach, when he realizes that his sword is not for killing, but for protecting. So, as we close the book on this dark alternate reality, let's take a breath. Let's appreciate the canon we have. Let's appreciate that Guts, for all his trauma, chose to love. He chose to be hurt again. He chose to carry the weight of others. And in doing so, he became stronger than any armor could make him. The Dragon Slayer is heavy, my friends. Too heavy for one man. That's why you need someone to help you carry the baggage, and someone to remind you that you can put it down and rest by the fire. Don't be the hollow sword. Be the struggler who loves.